we're extremely happy that you could come and make your presentation. Please. Salut, ça va?
Hello to everybody. And it's a pleasure to join you. Thank you for inviting. Yeah, so it's a pleasure to join you. Of course, we are all facing a very difficult situation, and so I wasn't really concentrated on that meeting the last days. But I'm very happy to join you, to be able to talk with you. So first, I would like to speak. I was invited to speak about NICU design and sensory supportive environment. And of course, I am very thankful to EFCNI to have organized all these European standards, which are very important for us, and to disseminate infant and family center developmental care, and also to get on for the good work and the good collaboration. So I will speak a bit about NICU design. Although I was not directly involved in that topic, but we had strong exchange in a relation with Atle Meun and Bubu Alberg, because it's very close to infant and family centered care. And of course, they are the chair of that topic group, and they work to reflect on NICU design in order to support, to meet infant sensory needs and to support parent-infant closeness, mainly through skin-to-skin care or contact. But NICU design, and also to give an answer to our parental needs, and also to the caregiver's needs, in order to optimize care. And the main goal is at the end to improve infant and family medical outcome. And of course, for that, to reach that goal, NICU design should include a collaboration between NICU planners and hospital administrators, but also direct collaboration with NICU staff and parents' representatives. This is very important to co-build the project. And so the group has focused on 3 different subtopics. Core principle of NICU design to promote EFCDC and facilitation of skin-to-skin contact, and general layout of the unit. So it's very difficult to go through all of that, and you can of course access to all the standards directly on this site of EFCNI. But I will just go through some points and discuss maybe some application and how to do it in a practical way, and which ways you have to take to improve NICU design. So I will just go back to each statement of a standard. So the core principles of NICU design is that the NICU should be designed to support safety and healing through unrestricted parental presence, and to use of supportive sensory material and optimal working facilities. And what is very stressed in that is that it should be promoted through close collaboration between families and staff of caring for the ill infant. And there are many benefits for that, because the first step is to be convinced with the scientific evidence. And one is from NICU design is has been shown is that NICU design can facilitate the implementation of infant and family centered developmental care. It can improve parental presence, and it can also reduce the rate of late onset neonatal sepsis. And just to go back to some of the studies that are supporting that, it has been shown that in case of family room, single family room, the parental presence is much higher as compared to a family hotel or when the parents are at home or in the maternity ward, because they can stay the whole day long, 24 and 7 to 7. This is important also. The other thing is that this has been published in The Lancet last year, and it was a systematic review and meta-analysis about single family room versus open bay units. And so it has been published after the issue of the recommendation of the standards, but this review nicely shown that in single family room, you've got a significant reduction of late onset sepsis, and also with a combined objective also to reduce the use of antibiotics. So a strong impact on bacterial sepsis. The other thing is to support, facilitate skin-to-skin and parental involvement through the physical environment. And with this nice picture taken in my unit of 3 triplets born at 25 weeks, you can easily understand that a bed in a room make a difference to offer the opportunity of skin-to-skin care. So for that topics, of course, it's again Atle Meun and Bobo Alberg and Bang Bang Otemo and Uwe Ewald and some other colleagues and Fabrizio Ferrari and Jacques Sizin and Bob White who have worked on that. And as Bjorn talked about skin-to-skin very nicely before, I won't insist on that. And go directly to a general layout of a unit. And many aspects has been taken into account: light, acoustic, material, patient safety, and space for the infant. As I will talk later again about light and acoustic, and I will just focus on the general layout and the space for the infants, because this is quite important to communicate with the stakeholders of the hospital. And there are many benefits that you can find on the EFCNS site from many studies. I think what is the most important in the standards is the provision of enough space. And it has been recommended, it is recommended that a patient treatment area has a minimal space of 18 square meter, and in case of no single family room, there should be also a sleeping area for the parents with a minimal space of 10 square meter. In case of single occupancy area, the minimal space should be of 24 square meter. So this is very important to have this in mind when you're building a new unit or when you are thinking of reorganizing the design of the unit, because it's something that should be argued with stakeholders of the hospital. What is really important also is to have monitoring areas for clinical settings that are close to the infant's room, so that the safety of the care is still maintained. And what is stressed also in the standards is that you need really, if you want the parents to stay, to meet the parental needs, to have a parental area where we can eat and socialize together. And what is important also is to have a staff room that is out of the sight of the parents, where the caregivers can be together. And also, it has been also already said before by Silke that you need to have also a palliative care room or bereavement room when an infant is passing away, for the family to be together with him. How to reach that? Of course, at the parents' level, and this is very important in the standard from EFCNI, that there is a the recommendations are declined through through parents and healthcare and services and healthcare providers and at the hospital level. Of course, parents should be informed about the importance of their active role and what are the hygiene rules if they are staying 24/7 in the unit. The staff should be trained for, of course, in EFCDC and emotional support, and there should be national guidelines on NICU-design elaborated in collaboration with parents, representatives, and healthcare providers. So if you're on the way, the first maybe point should be to support a more comfortable welcome to the parents with a comfortable chair close to the infant, so that parents can stay at least a couple of hours close to their infants and practice skin-to-skin contact. One other thing is to, if you are in a multiple open bay NICU or multiple rooms, you should use folding screen to provide privacy. You should also provide a dedicated room or an adequate space for breast pumping. And of course, you should think about the next step and and identify areas that are at need of change. So how will we improve the next year, in the coming months? What is our design project? And if you are on the way, the next step should be where to go. Everywhere we should have single family rooms with full parental presence and support for involvement. So these pictures were taken in Sweden. So lots of people will know this place, and because it's still the gold standard, single family room are highly supported by scientific evidence and should be implemented everywhere. So how to change, how to pass, how to go from open bay NICU to a single family room where the interaction with the infants are mainly provided by the mother and not by the caregivers. How to go from one infant mainly being in an incubator to infants cared in skin-to-skin care. So what is known is that you have challenges, and one challenge is that you to reach that point or to use adequately single family room, you need a change in culture and mindset, and for that you need a strong leadership, and you need knowledge about what is the scientific evidence and about the implementation of infant and family-centered developmental care. The other challenge is that it's a long process. You won't reach a single family room the next year, so you should work on that, and so you need for that a will to work, very important, and a process implying shared decision with stakeholders and the team and the parents. And it's very important also to visit other units that have gone through that process and to discuss with them the weakness and the strength of their design, what they would change and how they reach that. And you should be aware also, this is in every study, that there could be sometimes a conflict between families and the staff preferences. And when you are moving from an open bay NICU to a single family room, the staff could feel less secure at the beginning. So the project should be co-constructed with NICU staff and the parents, and you should support the staff also. And what is well known in the developmental care programs, that you need to work on the system change. And this is a long process, a continuous process. One other thing is that single family room is not a goal by itself. I took again this sentence because I think it's very important. It's not the goal, it's a tool to fulfill the rights and to reach better infant and family-centered care, and to support at the end the neurobehavioral outcome of the infant and the family. And what you have to keep in mind is that the good NICU design is the way to support and to provide a protective physical environment for the most vulnerable infants hospitalized in our settings. And it was, I come back now to an editorial that was published in Journal of Pediatrics in 2017, where 2 studies were published about the impact of single family room as compared to open bay NICU on the auditory environment of preterm infants. And with data showing that in single family room, the babies are more exposed to voices, to human voices, that can at the end support their language development. And the sentence and the take-home message from Alan Job was, my take is that the essential inputs are the sensory contents of the environment and not the physical design of the NICU. The physical design can help to support infant and family-centered care, but it's not the goal. It can facilitate optimal care, but the biology behind the improved outcomes is the critical factor. So it's the interactions and the sensory content of the NICU that is the most important. So that makes a good transition for me with the second topic about the topic expert group of infant and family centered developmental care. I worked with on the topic of supportive sensory environment with Bjorn, of course, and Natasha Bertoncelli and Manuela Filippa, Petra Upi and Inga Warren. And the main message is that the sensory environment should be adjusted to the infant's sensory expectancies and perceptual competencies. So that means that you need to go back to the science and the neuroscience, and we know that the sensory systems of the babies are anatomically present by the end of the first trimester of gestation and the beginning of the second trimester, and that the first physiological and behavioral responses of the infants can be recorded by the beginning, the end of the first trimester, the beginning of the end of the second trimester of gestation in all sensory modalities. And that we have proofs and indications about cortical integration of sensory inputs at the brain level, starting at the end of the second trimester or the beginning of the third trimester of gestation. So that means that preterm infants are well equipped to react to their sensory environment. And the problem is that they are facing a sensory environment that is quite different and atypical as compared to the one they should have continued to encounter in the womb of the mother. And the sensory systems are mainly exposed to sensory inputs coming from the mother or that are lessened through the abdominal and the uterine wall, like levels that are very low. And what is very important is also the contingency between every sensory inputs. So it's a multi-sensory perception of the same object in utero. And whereas it's quite different, many studies have shown that noise is very high with highly pitched sound, and hospital odors are strong and can be irritating through the trigeminal system. Light can be very bright, and preterm infants are exposed to very high stressful and maybe painful procedures that are repeated. And so finally the level of exposure to the sensory inputs coming from the mother can be low, and maybe the most important strategy and is to support skin-to-skin care, because it can restore the sensory continuity between the mother and the infant through different sensory exchanges. So this is in a neuroscientific and developmental psychology way very important. So how to do that? of course, you have to provide access and to support the exposure of the baby to hedonically positive and biologically meaningful stimuli. It's what I already maybe the three domains where it is very important are skin to access to breast milk parents can do, and that we cannot really do as healthcare professionals. And this is very important because it's a dedicated role for parents. That is very important. Of course, you have to minimize exposure to environmental stressors, and maybe there is room also for sensory intervention that can work if they are attuned to the neurobehavioral state of the infant. And through all these three actions, we can act and provide benefits. So just one study to go back to the evidence to show that repeated exposure to stressful stimuli can alter the brain growth and development of every preterm infant. This study has nicely shown that babies that were included had stress score that recorded the number of stressful stimulation, and they had an MRI at the end of their hospital stay, and also a neurologic examination. And what was found is that the more the baby were exposed to stressful stimuli in the first month of life, the more the cortical thickness was decreased in frontal and parietal areas. So there is a direct impact of stress on brain growth. This was also associated with function, because the babies that were full term here had full interhemispheric connectivity, whereas the less stressed preterm infants, when they reach term, had the same thing, but the more stressed infant didn't have the same development of brain connectivity. So both function and maturation can be affected by excess of stress. So the benefits when you use the three principles, core principles I mentioned before, is that you can, of course, support sleep, support the stability of the infants, support social interaction that are so important for the development of the infants, and also enhance maternal attachment and interaction between the mother and infant. And at the end, there are some evidence about improvement of neurodevelopment, and strong evidence about the improvement of language and cognitive outcome, and also of parental mental health. So just one study to go back to the auditory environment, most of the people are aware of that, and we already discussed that last year at the Ultra Early Intervention meeting. The study from the group of Betty Vore look at the amount of exposure to adult language in the NICU and to the production of vocalization by preterm infants. So there were two recorded sessions at 32 or 36 weeks using a very smart device that is the linear language analyzer, that is able to count the number of words, and also to identify reciprocal conversation, that means vocalization and adult words that were occurring in the following 5 seconds. And what this study has shown is that there is an increase of the number of vocalization per hour from 32 to 36 weeks, but also that conversation and reciprocal vocalization were much dependent of the number of adult words, and they were much more important during parental presence, showing that, ending with a conclusion that the more maybe you talk to your baby, the more he will vocalize at later. And so this is a very important message. And this group is it's very important. They are also followed the infants and shown that at 18 months of age, corrected age, the babies that were vocalizing the more at the neonatal period had the better cognitive and language outcome at 18 months. So there is a link between the auditory environment and the auditory exposure to human voices during the neonatal period and a better language outcome after. So what about the standard? Of course, the parents should be informed and should be guided to know how to better respond to the infant's behavior and sensory needs, and they should understand why the involvement in care is so important and why skin-to-skin care and contact is maybe the most important thing they can do. And healthcare professionals should support that and should be trained and supported also, and they should pay attention also to preserve speech intimacy between parents and the infant, to support a very meaningful interaction between the parents and the infant. There should be guidelines about noise and light, and we all know the guidelines from the group of a standard NICU-design from Bob White, and also the work from Kathleen Philbin, that have been updated. And so we know that we shouldn't exceed 40 dBA in the auditory mode. We know also that it's not only a question of protection, but we should also avoid auditory deprivation, and we should, to provide a nurturing environment, we should offer the infant access to language stimuli and direct talking, especially from parents. So how to do it at best? So at the hospital level, you should, of course, monitor the noise. You should reduce the pitch and the level of the alarms. You should work on the reverberation of the incubator, and maybe skin-to-skin contact is maybe the best way to avoid reverberation of the incubator. To pay attention when you use material device, and to use noise criteria to choose your material device. And maybe the best way is to provide skin-to-skin care as long as possible with parents, and using and talking to the infants using a mother's language full of emotion. About the olfactory environment, you have to think about which product you really need to use, and of course, hydroalcoholic solution are very, very important at the moment, and should be used near the infant, but you should really use it in the right way, and to use it to work, to respect the drying time before accessing the infant. There is no conflict with hygiene, safety, and sensory environment. It's just a question of the respect of the guidelines. And what about light? Bob White and his group has worked a lot on that, and of course we should avoid excessive light levels, and we should have dimmer switch to increase very slowly light levels, and to protect the eyes during situation of the infant during situation of high exposure. And it should be adjusted to the infant's behavior, and mainly before 31 to 32 weeks. Also, before the infants reach term-corrected age, we should ensure adequate day-night light changes, and before the infant is going home. And this is very important. So how to work, or to get started? Maybe the easiest thing at the beginning is to work on excessive light exposure, and to protect infants from excessive light. Excessive noise is a much more tough work, but it's a long process, but it's something really we should work on. And when you start to think about the sensory environment, you should focus on that also, with material device, but also the behaviors of the caregivers, and maybe to promote skin-to-skin as early as possible, and maybe to start with less vulnerable infants to get confident with practice, and to increase it, and to provide it more longer and at an earlier time also. This is the getting started point. And what about the further development? Of course, we should imagine and support as much as we can the interaction, sensory interaction between the parents and the infant, and with stimulation that are attuned to the infant. So that means that the parents are well informed and supported to recognize the behavioral cues of the infant and signs. And maybe there are opportunities for new ways to offer sensory stimulation combined with skin-to-skin contact, as it has been done for the strategy of early vocal contact, nicely supported by Manuela Filippa and colleagues. And there is place for maybe more sensory intervention through parents in the NICU and attuned to the infant. And maybe the best way is to have parents and infants cared in the same room, and couplet care, of course, is the best situation to meet the best sensory and to provide the best sensory environment to the infants. So I wanted to thank a lot Björn for this very important and very nice collaboration on that standards and all the group. It's not only the group of supportive sensory environment, but it was a very fruitful interactions, and thank you very much to all the people, and also to EFCNI to have supported this all this process that is so important. And also, so thank you to EFCNI. I would also, because you cannot do anything on NICU-design and sensory supportive environment if you are alone. So it's really the teamwork, and the teamwork with parents and healthcare givers. And so just a picture from my team in Strasbourg, where a couple of months ago we were celebrating the 10th anniversary of birthday of NICAP implementation, and we were all parents and caregivers together. And this is maybe the most important thing to reach the goal in NICU-design and sensory supportive environment. Okay, thank you for your attention.